Sliding off the wall behind you.
Is it too dark or you want it lighter?
It's too light behind you. You're glowing.
Is it still too light?
Yeah, you look like you're glowing.
I'm trying to think. There's an earlier way to make it too much darker.
Is there a window that's open?
Yeah, it's actually. Oh. Still too bright?
That's not too bad. Can you tip the camera up just a little bit? There we go.
Better?
Looks good, buddy. Looks pretty good.
Alright.
What are you thinking, Randy?
Yeah, we're good.
I think it looks good, buddy. So, on the podcast, so you'll see me because you're on a laptop, but you're actually on a monitor. So I'll be looking at the monitor and talking to the monitor. Randy's on the other side of the table and he's looking at the monitor. And the viewers, they see like us chatting and it looks like we're all talking, right? Because you're on a big monitor,
Okay.
we're talking to the monitor, yeah. So just so you know, and in terms of buffering, I'm not sure if you're a big hand talker, but if your things pass by the camera, sometimes it buffers. Your camera will buffer, so the feed will drop a little bit. So try not to do too much movement in front of the camera, and then that's pretty much it. No, rocking and rolling, right? Ready? You ready to rock? You ready to? Okay. So maybe for a little bit of an introduction on yourself, we've been sharing your videos a lot, and I know everybody knows you're a monster bench presser. But maybe give a bit of your stats, your competition best numbers, and some of your gym numbers in terms of the bench.
All right. I think just going back, age 39, been lifting since I was 13. I think the first time I actually measured in any relevant sense of what my bench press was, I think was going into freshman year of high school, 13 going on 14, I think I bench pressed at 225. Graduated benching 365. Went to college, started to compete. Started freshman year of college, was a 405 guy. By the time I was 19, hit my first 501 raw, drug-free in a competition. 19, I went to a different federation, hit like a 485. That was my first time lifting against, other people. Like I was open class, but I competed in the junior class. I think I went against, it was in Kennewick. It was, I want to say, 98 or 99 or 97, somewhere around there. I went against Ryan Kennelly and got smoked.
Oh, Ryan Kennelly, he's a monster.
Yeah, he hit like, it was shirted. I didn't know about shirted at the time. I think he hit like a 6'11", and I was raw at like a 484. So I didn't understand at the time, even for a junior class, a 484 raw was good, because I just saw 6'11" and said, what the fuck? I'm sorry, I don't know if we can cuss on
that.
that.
No, go ahead.
Yeah, so that was my first time getting my ass handed to me. Because for the most part, I was 19. I'd go to, the local gyms on Monday night and still smoke most of the people. And then, let's see, from there, did a couple more competitions, hit like some 500s, like some APF, I think a couple in Fresno. And it was harder for me because I was from Washington State, traveling at the time. So until I moved to California, I did a couple, US APL meets, took some time off, got after college, got married, stopped, competitive benching. And then I think I started really getting back into it 2012. I did a non-sanctioned meet at Venice Beach, hit a 6'11", touch and go, lost to a guy, Ryan DeWitt, who at the time hadn't lost in like 12 years, whether it was sanctioned or I think it was like 6 or 7 years. He hasn't lost a meet, whether it was sanctioned or non-sanctioned. He beat me by a pound. And then I went to the Fit Expo to redeem myself at the USPA, and I think I hit I was unknown at the time, and that was the meet. It was the same meet where Brandon Lilly had the accident with his knees. and some other stuff. So I was going in an unknown. I was just happy to get the invite. I hit a 624
Nice.
raw, and it was cool because that was the first time. I forgot his name. I want to say Tony. I think it's Tony Pasquarelli or someone. He does a podcast out of Vegas, and he was like, "This is going to be the next guy at 700 pounds." So that was actually pretty motivating. And between 2012 and now, I haven't lost a competitive meet. My all-time best in a sanction is 675. All-time best in the gym is a 705. Biggest attempt was 705 at USPA American Cup. I missed it by an inch. I ended up my third. That was for a fourth. My third attempt was a USPA record, a 661.
Nice.
So
300 kilo. So that's really the big number you're chasing then, is hit the 700 pound club?
yeah, it's 700. And I look back on it. It's one of those things where in this sport, and it's the funny thing, because I get, sometimes I get caught up in just talking shit back to trollers, and sometimes I'm like, why am I doing this? But you get so caught up in being competitive. It's one of those things where most people don't understand, because you see the gym lifts, or you see, if someone is familiar with powerlifting, watch them, they'll know about the 675. But for the most part, they know, 600 incline this, 600 incline that. And what kills me is hindsight's 2020. So if I think back, I think, it would have been cool for the record books to have a 690 or a 680. Because I think right now at 675 official, it puts me at number 6 or 7 all time. Jim Williams is like number 6. He's a late lifter from the 70s. Number 1, you got Krill at 738.
Mm-hmm.
2, you got Spoto at 722. You have Mendelson at 716 at 3. Henderson, I want to say, is 4 at 711. And then you got this other guy, Julius, out of Texas. A kid just hit a 679 or something in a sanction meet. So he's at like 5. Me and Jim Williams are tied for 6 and 7. But the whole thing of it is no one thinks at 675. You only think 700. You don't think, I want to move up in the rankings. You just think you want to hit 700. So I think that's why there's so much of a gap between 700 and 675, because no one ever looks at that list and says, okay, I'll be happy with 680.
Yeah, it's true.
Because you'll just be remembered as the guy who didn't hit 700, not the guy who's number 5 all by himself at 680. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But looking back on it, I would love to have a 690 or a 680, on the record books for the all-time.
So you said you're 39. How are the shoulders and the body holding up? Like, obviously you're still moving forward in terms of your lifts, and there's no petering off in strength yet.
Yeah, you know what? That's a really good question. I get that all the time, and I think in between, there's a couple things. I think in between my time off from 2000, and it's funny because I think 2009 or something was when I first got back into competing, actually before the 2012, and I went to the same Fit Expo and won the super heavyweights with the 501. So you can see the transition from 2009 to 2012 from a 501 to a 624. So,
and what do you attribute that to, by the way?
A couple years ago, after the 700, I think I was so hungry to chase that 700. I think I took on way too many meets, and I actually did a meet in Detroit where they did a misload. And for me, I've never had a bar misloaded, so it was 650. So when the bar came off, I thought it was my CNS. I thought it was me, so I tried to overstabilize it, and it actually caused me to have like a small tear that I didn't think was anything too bad because I've never had a severe injury. So I went into the Fit Expo last year with that tear, and this is all stuff I found out after the fact. And then I took a 661, and I completely tore my bicep tendon.
Jeez.
And so when I went to the doctor, this was last year, January, everyone said I was either done or I would never hit 600 competitively within the year. I would never be a 300. So after I got the news of the MRI, I ripped it up and I just told him, you know what, fuck you. I'm not going to pay you to tell me what I can't do. So that's why I think, a lot of shit on internet because, well, there's, many reasons, but all last year, for the longest time, I was a sub 600 guy, but most people in the sport don't know I completely tore my bicep tendon. Mm-hmm. So actually, I was happy because I think August, I ended up hitting a 600 on the platform again. And then, I took a couple 605s and a couple of meets. And then I went to Detroit again and bombed at 600. So I was happy to go from bombing 600 to hitting 633 this last January.
People talk shit if you only bench 600?
Yeah.
What?
Well, the thing is, because here's the thing that haunts me is for the longest time I hated social media, so I never had an Instagram. My friends that I used to live with, and that's a whole nother story, gym buddies. Actually, I'll tell you the quick version. They were guys I met at the expo. They were local California guys that wanted to learn how to bench, so I tried to took them under my wing. And it just ended up, we just had, a lot of differences, but they were big on YouTube. So I was like, okay, let's give it a shot. And, it helped get some notoriety. But at the time, I was bigger on showing fans or whatever you want to call it, how I really lift. I overtrain. I do a lot of incline, and I'm a big fan, believe it or not, before the slingshot of, if you need someone to give you a small bit of assistance, I'd rather get assistance on a lift with 675 than have my bar speed be slow at 600 and just grind it out. Mm-hmm. So for a lot of time, I got criticism, he's not 650 strong, he's not 600 strong, because he always has hands on the bar. I did it for safety reasons, and because, too, I wanted to keep my bar speed. And I know eventually, just like from the Bigger, Stronger, Faster program with, the bench block, or not bench block, but the towel bench, eventually you're going to be strong enough to get the lift. Mm-hmm. So that's how I've always trained, and my philosophy was I'm just going to show people, the raw footage. I'm not going to candy coat it. I'm not going to doctor it up. I'm not going to Castleberry it for the camera. I'm just going to show people, hey, this is how I really lift and train. And the thing that killed me is so many people thought that's all there was to me, regardless if I turn around and go hit a 600 on the platform with a pause and the toughest sanction meets there are. You know what I mean?
Yeah. That's the thing where it's like, dude, whatever he's doing in training, take it with a grain of salt and learn from it, because the proof is in the pudding on the platform. It's not like you're just doing it in the gym and that's where the story ends, right?
Exactly. It kills me because I have so many people, because they saw, there's the one where I almost nailed the 675 on incline, and they're like, oh, well, you're not that. And I'm like, well, I don't give two shits because I have it. It's in the record books. It's in a sanctioned meet. And the funny thing is I'll take 600, or before I was injured, I would take it all the time. And I've always hit higher numbers on the platform than I ever have in the gym. Mm-hmm. When I hit the 661 in competition, I never took 660 for a single. I never took 660 or 650 for a single in the gym. Mm-hmm. I think the highest I've ever taken in the gym in a competition style lift is maybe 630 on the flat bench. I'm not a one rep max guy in the gym to see where I'm at because I'm superstitious. And two, I don't like doing flat work that often because it's just too much wear and tear on the tendon. So there's more carryover from incline because you have to be explosive. When you take 600 off on the incline or 500, right away either one, you're going to get it, you're not, or two, if you feel you're going to get it, you have to be explosive. So it takes all the thinking, all the guesswork. And if you notice a lot of times, if you think even to when you or I lift, when you're on flat bench and you take something that's super heavy, the first thing you're going to want to do is you're going to want to widen your grip and you're going to want to over control it on the descent, which then totally takes it from being an explosive lift like bench press should be. It should be explosive. Even when you pause it on your chest, on the descent, you're still controlling all the centric energy and building up all the tension. And then between your tricep and lat activation, it becomes an explosive lift off the chest. So with me, I like to train incline because it takes all the thinking out of it. It then now becomes an explosive reactionary lift. You're reacting to something that is going to be super heavy and you have to explode to get it off your chest. Mm-hmm. So that's why incline still has a ton of carryover when I go to flat. But I don't like to do a ton of flat work just because it's too much wear and tear on the shoulders.
You use a Duffalo bar a lot for the flat work, eh?
Yeah.
Why is that?
Yeah, what advantage do you get from that Duffalo?
Okay, that's a very good question. The Duffalo bar, it's funny because I never did time in the service, but there was something that always resonated with me about, the different. Well, my dad was in the Air Force, and most of my family that did military time were Air Force people, so they were kind of like fluffy. They always had the best of the best shit. Versus most of the people that I knew after high school or college were Marines, and Marines get the shittiest of everything. They get the shittiest accommodations, the shittiest food, the shittiest uniforms, just pretty much the shit of the shit. So I kind of like the fact that and I look at this with the Duffalo bar and just my style of training in general, because I was never, and I'm not very candid about this, I'll never ever have two gripes about not being a guy who went to train under Louis Simmons or the West Side or at a prestigious powerlifting gym. My whole career, I could give two shits. I'll train at a local commercial 24-hour gym, and I adopted that, like that whole, I call it the Marine philosophy. I figure if you learn to train under shitty situations and circumstances, when you go to use good equipment at a good meet, on a platform, everything's going to be a positive. So with that being said, you take a bar like the Duffalo bar, it's on average about weighted 15 pounds heavier. It's got a thicker diameter, so you have to work more grip work because it's a bigger bar. Mm-hmm. It's a heavier bar, so it's on average 15 pounds heavier than your standard Texas bar, and it's got a 2-inch deficit. So when I go and I lift flat bench on a fat pad where you don't get any lat activation, my feet are up, the bar's coming 2 inches below my chest, you're pretty much creating every fucked up scenario you could possibly have. So when I go to get my feet down on a normal standard, Inzer or Forza bench with a Texas bar with Inco, customized or Ivanco customized calibrated plates, everything's a fucking plus.
Yeah.
So it only begins easier because you're taking every fucked up scenario and now you're giving yourself no excuses.
Mm-hmm.
So that's just the way I like to train it with the Duffalo bar. It's just like my philosophy with incline. If you train under tougher situations or circumstances, it's going to make you better. If you take the harder route opposed to the easier route, you're only going to become better. Like if you're a sprinter and you have the choice to go on a nice track or always constantly sprint uphill, the sprinting uphill and the hard work is not going to make you slower. It's going to make you work harder, and it's going to transition to you're going to be faster under normal conditions. So that's the way I like to train.
In your training, do you do, in terms of volume-wise, what's your set ranges often to try to move your bench?
My set range is, I don't want to be at home, so I'd rather be in the gym for 2 hours. I'm being honest with you. I don't go in with a notepad.
No, we know, because you're married. We get it. You're married.
Yeah, no, am I married or am I happy?
That's right.
I'm happy being married to the gym. That's how I like to
There you go.
But no, I go in, and if there's a couple numbers. People nowadays, they want to talk about numbers and algorithms and theory, and I'm starting to buy into it. I get it. I understand it. But I think the only number that really matters as far as, people in their working percentages, I think the only working percentage that matters is 110% of everything you're going to fucking do. That's the only percentage that matters, not your one rep, 65% of this or that. No, 110% of whatever lift is put in front of you. That's the percentage that matters. So with that being said, if I care about numbers, I'm thinking I want to be in the 200 to 400 rep range. A common workout for me is a 10 by 10 on flat, 10 by 10 on incline. And the first couple weeks of a workout program, and I'll get into that. I want to break it down into overload training to get my CNS and to get my endurance ready for the heavier training in week, 5, 6, 7, or 8 when I'm trying to peak. So a standard workout for me is 10 by 10 with 405. Then I'll take 10 or 15 minutes off, and I'll go 10 by 10, 405 on incline.
You did. I just seen you post. You did like 40 reps at 240 on that Duffalo bar, right?
Yeah.
That's insane, man. The type of volume you're putting through on the bench. Holy.
Yeah, it's insane. You know what that's crazy about that is, if you're not familiar, that's actually one of the skinnier benches out. It's a 10-inch opposed to your standard, 12 to 16 inch, or even, compared to your Thompson fat pad that I also work out on. Because the guy at the gym barbell was like, that's a 10-inch bench. And I was like, yeah. He goes, well, you will get, no help or shoulder support, whatever. So not only are your shoulder blades, going to wrap around and get no support, which is going to cause you to sink lower, the Duffalo bar is going to be at a super 2-inch deviation. So you're pretty much, like I said, creating a very fucked up scenario, which for a guy who tore his bicep tendon, it could be bad, but it just makes me work harder. But I was, I was super proud of that, because 240 opposed to 225 for 40 reps, full range of motion with the Duffalo bar. Most people don't understand how hard that feat is, especially, keeping your feet up.
So with that kind of benching though, like how many days a week do you do it? How many days a week do you actually bench?
Like do you find that you could possibly overtrain and fry your nervous system doing that, or?
Yes and no. Right now, I work out, okay, in a normal, and I'll say normal for me, this is going to sound crazy, but normal, I'd say if I'm getting, like right now, I'm getting ready for a contest, all goes well, hopefully in Chicago, the Fit Expo, I'm looking to go 650 to 680. That's my targeted range. So week 1 through 5, like I said, is just getting reacclimated, because I'll take a couple weeks off. Like I took some time off of, January. So a dead week or time off for me is just going and playing around with 225 or 315. That to me is like non-existent bench work. But I'll do it just to kind of maintain. So now that I'm getting back into form, I would say I'll do a double day on Monday where I go in for 2 hours from 10 to 12 in the morning, and then I'll do a heavy session at night. Most of my filming's done at night, the stuff you see, the big bench. So, and then Wednesday, Tuesday, I'm in the pool doing rehab, hydrotherapy, basically just getting in, splashing around, getting rid of lactic acid, keeping my mobility up. Wednesday is a tricep day. It's all tricep. It's close grip, it's bench block, and it's hammer strength dip machine. Maybe some tricep extensions. And real quickly on that, because I'm not a huge fan. I like accessory work. I'm not a fan of making sure I get accessory work in. And for me, I've always just worked like that. But what I'm saying is, you see a lot of people will do a speed through the workout. They'll write down in their program, I got 5x5. They'll do their 5x5, which is nowhere near enough volume for a bench day, because they want to make sure they get their tricep push downs in, their rope and all this stuff. And here's what's crazy. When you just break it down from a math or from an empirical point of view, if we're going to be on the same page and agree somehow, some way, that triceps and lat activation, primarily triceps, is 70% of the working part of your bench press. It's responsible for 70% of your power output. How the hell, if you're a 400 or 500 pound bencher, do the math. You go from bench press where triceps are responsible for 70%, and you're working, you're doing 100% of the work, obviously, on the bench. And then you want to cut that short to go do tricep work for 10 sets of maybe 10 or 12 pushdowns with 50 fucking pounds. Do the math. That's not even a fraction of a fraction percentage of 400. And you just got done doing 400 pounds, which your triceps are 70% responsible for. So how the hell is that addressing any strength issues on your triceps whatsoever? But people will cut the workout short because you got to get that accessory work. You got to get those French curls. You got to get those skull crushers, And it's just, people just do too much accessory work that doesn't address their primary goal on their bench is to get better, it's just to push more weight and get stronger. And, when it comes to, another really big thing about that is people want to get better on bench, but they want to do everything except bench. They want to do chains. They want to do bands. They want to do slingshot. And, here's my biggest pet peeve is everybody and their mom that tells me, you would have locked out 705 if you just do pin presses. You would have locked this out. Pin presses, to me, they don't really address too much in the fact that, one, it changes your mechanics and you really just end up being a better pin presser because you're taking all the eccentric movement out of the bench press. You're turning it into literally a deadlift. And here's what kills me. When you pin press, you're addressing the last quarter or 25% of your bench press. Mm-hmm. The last part of the lockout is approximately 25% of the lift. So how the hell do you think you're going to get better addressing 25% of the lift and ignoring the other 75, which is the lockout, the constant tension, the tricep and lat activation, the explosion off the chest? So I'm not a big math guy by all means, but I know if I ignore 75% of the most important part of the fucking lift and address 25%, that's not going to get me anywhere.
Yeah.
If I have a fight with my wife and I get cussed the fuck out and I address, I'll put up the toilet seat, but I don't address the other 6 things I did fucked up all week, I'm not getting nowhere in that argument. But people have this mentality that they can address 25% of an issue and it's going to fix 100% of the problem.
Yeah.
So over the years, though, like you were saying, from 2009 till now, body weight wise, has there been a big change in your body weight from 2009, 2010 to now?
You know what? Yes and no. There's been, I think in 2009, and I'm not scared to say this, 2009 I was probably, 360, 370. And, I'm still a fluffy guy. I'm not going to be, a Calvin Klein model anytime soon. But it was more of a not as muscular kind of fluff, I guess, if you want to call it that. And a lot of it was due to I hadn't got diagnosed with sleep apnea. So after I got diagnosed, got my CPAP, I probably dropped down to like 310. And I was a lot lighter, but I also, did lose some strength. And then, over getting serious with the bench press and, incorporating some other stuff, and supplements and whatnot, I started to put the weight back on more in a solid kind of form, so the weight's gone back up. Mm-hmm. When I hit the 270, the 675, I was probably closer to 360, 370. And, I think to get to 700, I would like to be able to do it around 330, 340. But I think mass-wise, I think I'll probably have to be 350, but solid.
Yeah. So you think you want to drop weight to bench more?
I think I just want to change the body. I want to change the body composition. Here's the thing. I could drop 30 pounds of fat and put on, another 10 or 20 more pounds of doing, what's that shit called? I think it's, is it squats? Because people think I never work my legs. I get that all the time. Do you ever train legs? And I'm like, what's a squat? What's a squat? I can do some of those. Build up my legs.
That's the question I was going to ask is, how much of the other lifts do you do in terms of squats, deads, just for overall nervous system taxing and making your overall body stronger?
I actually do a lot. I'm a huge fan of everything, especially bench press, of risk reward. If the reward is going to be more beneficial than the risk. Here's a great example, dumbbells. I don't do heavy dumbbell work because I'll get more work out of benching 405 on the incline than I will doing incline dumbbell presses with 200 pounds just to say I did it with 200 pounds.
Yeah.
Because you have to have a good spotter, a good loader, and you got to hope sure your shoulders don't get out of whack when you're doing it. Mm-hmm. Therefore, the risk versus the reward is not that high, so it's a movement I don't do. I love squats and deadlifts, but a couple things. One, I do so many competitions in bench, and I get endorsements and paid to be a bencher. I can't pull out of a contest because I hurt myself squatting. So I'll do squats like 300-400 pounds to keep my legs and CNS in shape. I'll do a shit ton of work on a leg press just because I can move more and it's a low risk reward. But I'm a huge believer if you're not the best or relatively super, good at competition style, at the level I try to do stuff, then I'm not going to post it, and I'm not going to try to front myself as an authority. I'll tell people, you want to watch great squat videos, watch Blaine, watch Ray Williams, watch Brandon, Brandon Allen, watch Brandon Lilly, watch Dan Green if you want to learn how to deadlift. Chris Duffin. I don't give two shits for getting, accolades for trying to be something I'm not, and I don't hide it and I don't candy coat it, but to the point where I get that question all the time. Why don't you ever post this? Why don't you ever post that? I'm like, it's a fucking bench IG. I made no mistake about it. My calendar says bench 8 days a week. Yeah. So I don't have a problem. And I have nothing against people who do all three lifts. After high school and college, I just didn't have a good team of people who knew how to rap and do other stuff and, really push you like I had in high school and college. So, and then with me not being at the same kind of gym with moving around, I just figured I can always bench or do other stuff on my own, so I abandoned all three lifts. But I mean, and this is the thing that's funny, and I hate to sound like Al Bundy and Polk High and 4 touchdowns in one game, but at 215 body weight in high school, I was pulling 650, I was squatting 600, and I was benching 350. And that's at 215. So I tell people, if I put a fraction of the effort I put in the bench, and obviously my legs were stronger in high school and they're not deformed or anything now, why the hell would I not pull a shit ton of weight? And it's like, and I'm like, so you're telling me a guy who used to pull 600-700 pounds, that benches almost 600-700 now, who's almost 150 pounds or 120 pounds heavier, can't put in a year's worth of work and be a top level puller if you wanted to, or a squatter? I don't even waste the time arguing because I know what the results are going to be, but other people, they just want something to troll or to talk shit about, and it's funny is I like, maybe the other people should be happy that I don't deadlift. Maybe they should be happy that, and I'm not trying to sound super cocky, but it's the truth. Yeah. You know what I mean? And I make no mistake about it. Just like I make no mistake about I love and it coincides with this, the USPA. I don't give a shit that the USPA doesn't test, because I want to lift against the best of the best, because I know a million people at Gold's Gym that are on way more supplements or Flintstone tablets than me that don't bench like I do. And with that being said, there's no way if I was pulling 675 drug-free in high school and I'm taking Flintstone tablets now, that my legs aren't going to get stronger than they were. It would not happen. But to each their own. And I'm not condoning it. I'm just a realist. It is what it is.
Yeah.
It's like I can't bullshit anybody, and I'm not gonna try to. You don't go from 501 in 2009 to 624 in 2012. And there's not something in your trend and dumb, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So being a big bench guy, when you like take someone on to start training them and stuff, like how do you start measuring out hand grip and stuff like that? You see some people really narrow, some people really wide. Like, do you have any kind of like advice for that?
I would say when I'm not a big. You won't see me do a lot of ads, for 12 weeks training with the machine. I'll post it every once in a while, and I'll take on clients. But for the most part, I just put them on the same regimen that I'm on as far as the volume part of it, and I'll break down your lifts and just see what you're deficient. I think that's the thing. People tend to coach up and allow people that they coach to concentrate on what they're good at, instead of breaking someone down and saying, that's great that your triceps are strong because you like to do close grip all the time, but let's find out what you're doing fucked up and let's address that. Because it's easy to let someone spend all the time in the world doing something they're good at, but that's not going to make you better because you're not addressing what's fundamentally wrong. So whether someone's grip is wide or narrow, I don't get too caught up in that. I don't get too caught up in whether you wrap your thumbs or whether you don't. I don't try to do a lot of what a lot of coaches I think do, which is turn people into mini versions of themselves. I try to take the fundamentals that I know work across the board, and I'll dissect a lot of people. I'll dissect Spoto, I'll dissect Krill, I'll dissect a lot of the top people and say, what fundamentally they do that's consistently, pretty much the same, and it's they're really strong from the lockout, from the handoff. They have really great elbow tuck and really great activation. So whether someone needs to arch or do all this other stuff, I don't really get caught up in too much of that. I just try to take the common themes and reinforce them with just becoming, I think, for the most part, I'd say my style is to make people more efficient with their triceps. Mm-hmm. Rather than, because here's the thing, a lot of people get so caught up in coaching, the arc or how to, arch your back. And my theory is this: you can arch your back and cut down on the range of motion, but it's like you want to go to quarter mile in a Volkswagen Bug because you're so caught up in shortening the distance that the bar has to travel. But if your energy production is reduced because you're not engaging your triceps, then what's the point? It's like you're going a quarter mile in a Volkswagen Bug versus I'd rather make someone more efficient and put someone in a Lamborghini and let them go a mile. Granted, yeah, they're going a further distance, but they got a better engine and more torque and velocity on the bar to get it there faster. And that's what it comes down to, and it goes back to what we were just talking about addressing 75% of people's bench versus just that last 25% with the lockout. If you have no explosiveness to get the bar to that midway point, then it doesn't matter how much you address your lockout or how much you address your pin press. And the proof's in the pudding, because I know a million people that can pin press 650 pounds. I'm not going to name names, but you can go on Instagram and see, people that are, a lot darker than myself that are probably 100 pounds heavier that, bench press, in Texas or under strength systems that are the best fucking pin pressures in the world, but they're not putting up 650 in a meet. Why is that? Because if you don't have the fucking energy to get the bar to midway, it doesn't matter if you can pin press 150 pounds. You're just a great pin presser. Point blank, period. Because you're not addressing how to control 650 from the bottom to get it out of the hole and driving it to that midway point.
Mm-hmm. Do you do any partials at all? Like I like, not besides pin press. We know you don't do pin press, but
do you do board work, block work, or any partials?
I'll do speed work with the bench block because I feel it's more important at that midway point to be explosive and have great bar speed rather than try to get super, super powerful through there. I work on my power from the descent to the midway point, and that's why you'll see me take 700 pounds or you'll see me take 650 pounds, and from the top to the bottom, it's going to move the same. If I get stuck, it's always at the same point, and it's just a matter of having enough energy to get it past that point. So could I probably work more on that part of it? Yeah, but I'm not a huge fan of partial. That's why I don't do floor presses. That's why I do so much stuff with my feet up, because I want the full range of motion. And I'd rather overload with a slingshot and do the full range of motion than just work on a partial, because you're not, like I said, you're not addressing the kinetic energy part of it when you're only doing a partial. You're turning it into a deadlift instead of an explosive lift.
So you do use a slingshot then?
Yeah, I use a slingshot, and that's I'll use it sparingly during the last 3 or 4 weeks of overload, because it's kind of the same philosophy. You watch any great fighter, whether it's MMA or boxing, what's the last thing they're in there doing besides, hand sparring with the partner? If most of the time they got a speed bag in there, because speed kills, speed translates to everything. It's like you can train speed all the time and you can work on a heavy bag and it's going to work on more punching power, but ultimately, if you always train on a heavy bag, or if you always train with a slingshot and work overload, it's going to slow down your bar path. It's going to slow down your bar speed. Therefore, when you get to the meet, you're essentially training your body to move at a slower rate. So that's why I try to keep my overload and my slingshot work to the last 3 or 4 weeks before a contest, and then the last 2 weeks I'll do a little bit of slingshot work, and I'll still incorporate a lot of speed, because I only do the overload work just really to get used to get acclimated, the CNS and holding the heavy weight in the bar. Because 3 or 4 weeks out, you're either 650 or 700 pounds strong. You're not going to get amazingly stronger in that last 2 or 3 weeks.
Yeah.
But what you can do is you can maintain your speed and your bar path and maintain your explosiveness.
So talking about competitions, who is it that you feel pushes you? Who are you hunting down and chasing? Is kind of like your rival in the sport for benching, or are you right in the mix there with the big fellas? Like where do you see yourself?
That's a great question. And it's kind of, I wouldn't say it's hard to answer it. It comes down to, most of the time, if I go to, I'm not big in paperweights. I'm not big in participation awards. And so with that being said, I know there's a lot of meets if I go to, 9 times out of 10, I'm either going to win on my opener or it's going to be uncontested. So if it's more of a prestigious meet, say for example, I'm proud the last 4 Fit Expos I've won. But with that being said, I know there's been very few that have had a super heavyweight. So my competition is to get best overall. So when it comes down to people and their talk and internet, this or that, I can say, well, you know what, it doesn't matter because I still won by Wilkes.
Yeah.
Even though I don't really give two shit about Wilkes, when it comes to something like that where it's round robin, everybody gets everybody, to me, first place is, best lifter overall. If there's a best lifter for bench, that's the award I go for. It's not first place super heavyweight because it's an artificial lift. It's like you go and you lift against one person out of 1, you're going to fucking win by default. And a lot of people, they'll post and they'll talk about it. And then I'm the one that will ask that question. I'm like, because I've had people in my own camp get so caught up in that stuff. Oh, I just came back from Pendleton and I took first place. Well, Pendleton's known across the industry as a fucking rookie meet. 2, there's no other heavyweights there unless you lifted against, Jesse Martinez, who's 18 years old and he's doing his first junior contest because he felt bad about his self-esteem being a chubby heavyweight kid in high school. So you beat up on him. Fucking great job. Kudos to you. So you took first place out of 2 people.
Is Jesse Martinez real? Is Jesse Martinez real? Is Jesse Martinez like, yo, what the fuck? How's this guy called?
You know what? Here's the thing. I try to be super witty, so maybe that was being a little bit too biased considering Camp Pendleton's close to San Diego and it's California. And I felt like Jesse Martinez would be a good heavyweight kid to pick on. I don't know. I could have said Pedro. That doesn't really matter. It's a fictitious guy. It's a true story I made up.
Well said. So in terms of the bigger scheme, worldwide, is there guys that motivate you that you're chasing to move up that list or that all-time list?
I mean, I'll be honest about it. And I get this question a lot, and I'll say it with all due respect. I know that list like the back of my hand, and I'll give my 2 cents, the uncandid, the unfiltered, the oh my god, I can't believe you fucking just said that.
Good.
Let's go from top to bottom.
Let's do it.
Krill is a fucking beast. There's no mistake about it. He's a beast. He's 738 to 7038. It was clean as fuck. You can't dispute that. The only thing you could say is questionable is, to my knowledge, I don't think Krill's lifted over, and I'm gonna hold on. Disclaimer: before I say this, I'm also gonna give the anti-argument for and against it. Krill, to my knowledge, has never lifted over 700 pounds outside of Russia. So, am I saying Russia doctors up the weights over there? No, but he hasn't done it. So who's to know head to head? How great he is against competition that's in that ballpark. With that being said, I haven't touched 700 pounds, so I can't sit here and run my mouth and say Krill's only great because he lives in Russia, and if he went against me in fucking New York City, it'd be a different story.
Yeah.
No, because on the flip side of that, I also know that a lot of people, including myself, aren't going to travel. I sure as hell, I'll be honest with you, I'd probably get destroyed if I went to Russia because there's a couple things. One, I don't trust the fucking Russians to poison my shit or fuck with me. Hey, I'm just keeping it real. I'm not saying all Russians. I'm just saying
Russians.
the Russians that control. And 2, as someone who's a little bit versed in the sport, I'm not going to fly with Halo and I'm not going to fly with suspension to be stronger the day of. And I think that's probably why Krill doesn't do as good outside the country because a lot of powerlifters aren't going to fly international with that stuff in their bag.
Yeah.
So maybe that's the reason why. And maybe that's the reason we see a lot of Americans don't do good at like Big Dog or other stuff when they go to Australia. Because you see a lot of people talk about so-and-so this, so-and-so that went to Australia, they just tanked. Did they tank or were they smart and they didn't fly with halo and fucking suspension?
What is halo and suspension? What is halo and suspension for some people who don't know?
Halo is pretty much, it turns you from 0 into like, I don't know, just super. You ever watch MMA or UFC?
Oh yeah, fuck yeah.
You see that look that a lot of fighters have in their eye when you know they're about to kill someone?
Yeah.
That look. That's what Halo takes you from average Joe to a UFC fighter that can actually fight.
Is it like a pre-workout? Like what is it? What actually is it though? Is it like a pre-workout type shit?
No, it's Halo Testins. It's a super anadronic steroid that is mostly used for fighters and other people. It's not talked about, but hey, that's what I'm on here for, to keep it real.
That's right.
And talk about the real. Test suspension is the fastest acting testosterone that you can get that's synthetic, that gets in your system and turns you from Clark Kent to Superman within a couple hours.
Okay.
I mean, granted, you still have to be strong, like Brandon Lilly and other people said. You can't be Joe Schmo and take supplements or gear. If you're a shitty guy without gear, you're going to be a subpar shitty guy with gear.
Yeah. It's all relative.
You don't have the
it's all relative.
Yeah, so what I'm talking about is I'm talking about the elite people who, when I'm saying it makes a difference, if you're talking about going from 650 to 675, yeah, Halo or suspension is going to make that difference.
But couldn't you have somebody in Australia who would have it for you, or
you could? I mean, you could, and I'm sure that's what, and that's the one thing I'd say when people ask about the difference between being a professional and amateur is the amount of doors and the price point. Here, I'll say it like this: I remember in college being a high school guy or being a college football guy. That was if I was to dabble in trying to get gear, other stuff. One, you're paying an arm and a leg, and two, you're getting shit that's stepped on from a lab from Mexico. The second you go out there and you're a power lifter or a bodybuilder, and you win a show, or you put up 600-700 pounds, or you got some notoriety, you got everybody and their mom with the best pharmaceutical grade gear that wants to just give you the stuff.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Just like you get supplement companies, other people will ride your jock and they want to give you the best of the best. So there's perks of being better in the sport, but at the end of the day, you have to pay your dues to get to that point. So yeah, once you're professional per se, you can probably have those connections to get it done. But for the most part, the average, even professional, probably doesn't. Maybe one, they don't think that far ahead, or two, they don't try to make those connections, or three, they're not going big time, so they're not traveling to Australia or Russia. Mm-hmm. So if we look at that list, Kirill would definitely be number one. A guy that I would love to be able just to say I lifted against head-to-head.
Yeah.
Spoto, a great person. I would like to say, I wouldn't say a friend because we don't talk on the phone, on a daily or monthly basis, but an associate and ambassador of the sport. I respect him. And with his injury and where he's at, I don't know if he's going to come back to the platform, and it's not my place to speculate. The guy hit 722, which is an American record, and it's going to stand for quite a while.
How was his pause? Was his pause?
Mendelssohn, Scott doesn't compete, except for exhibitions. He doesn't compete Raw anymore, and I have no ambitions to jump in a shirt. James Henderson, he's a motivational speaker, I think pastor now, in his 50s or 60s, so he's not competitive. Julius, is somewhere out there. I'd like to lift against him. He's 400-something pounds. He's another one of those, guys from that part of, I think Texas or someplace where the federations don't make you fully lock out or hold. So I'd love to, but I broke down his footage. He's a great lifter. He has a great hold. I think he's just, unfortunately lives in a shitty federation. So that's, and then, Jim Williams doesn't lift anymore. So, Kennelly, I know, is making a comeback, but I don't think Kennelly is 600, 50-ish raw. But, I'd love to lift against him. But for right now, I'd say the biggest person I got to lift against is myself. I go to a meet, most of the time it's uncontested. So I got to push myself during training camp, and that's all I can really. At the end of the day, you can only really worry about yourself. Because, I mean, we can go down all these lists of so-called, rivalries, which I think has been great for marketing. I think the USPA, has done a really good job of it. And then there's other federations, IPL, that have the lifters, but for whatever reason, they don't. And I'm not saying they should, but maybe someone out there should say there should be, a Blaine versus Ray. I'd like to see it. I'd love to, but then it comes down to people going back and forth. Are they both going to lift in sleeves, or are they both going to lift in reps? At the end of the day, fuck it. They're both 900-pound plus squatters. Who really gives a shit if it's sleeves or a knee, or if they walk it out or they don't walk it out? I think there needs to be more rivalries in the sport, but unfortunately, I think the ones that have tried to be rivalries lately, you have, people go to meets and they don't make weight, or they get an injury, during training, or, just a lot of stuff. And then this is kind of a chip I have on my shoulders. You have, meets, say, and I'll just say, you have meets like Boss of Bosses, where there's so much hype, but how many big lifts have come out of those meets? You know what I mean? And I know the people who run it, and, kudos to them. And maybe I'm an asshole, maybe I'm not, but I don't know how you can have a meet that's a USPA meet, and you can be the top-ranked heavyweight for the last 5-6 years, and you don't get the invite to go to that meet. So is it really the best of the best?
Who didn't get invited?
I've never got invited to Boss of Bosses.
Really? You've never been invited?
Never been invited.
Could you reach out and be like, hey, man, what the shit? Why do you think that is?
Because here's the thing. It's like one of those things. It's like, I don't think I'm the most prolific bench press ever, but at the same time, I'm human. So when you see, so-and-so just got their invite, they're going to Boss of Bosses, this person, that person, and then, you see that you can go, but you're not, I'm not going to go to a prestigious meet, so-called, like Boss of Bosses, on the amateur, everybody open, sign up and you get to go.
Yeah.
I want to go on the invite-only day. So until that happens, maybe it's stubbornness, I'm not going to reach out. But at the end of the day, what am I missing out? Because how many 600-pound lifts have you seen come out of Boss of Bosses? So am I really missing anything, or is it just going to be another paperweight? Is it going to be, so-and-so showed up and uncontested, or what? You know what I mean?
Is the U.S. Open coming up with the USPA? Did they got the bench only going?
I don't think they have bench only. I think it's all three. And that actually, I've been questioned about that. That would be a great lift. It'd be great, but then it's one of those things where, and I say this tongue in cheek with all due respect. There are a lot of records, I think, for the cash part of it that are obtainable. But realistically, for me, I would love to be pushed. But the all-time world record is 738. I'm not going to hit that record. So there is no cash prize for 99% of the people who, if they were going to bench, are going to bench that meet. And two, you're not going to krill there to go head-to-head against them, so you're not going to have that added motivation. Now, if it was something like a U.S. record, like a chance to go at 722, I would strongly consider, training all year for just that one meet, but it's not set up that way, so I'm a realist, so I'm not going to, I'm not going to go out of my way to do it when I could go for personal records and bigger meet, not bigger meets than that, but big meets like right now, a couple, before the Fit Expo, I had a talk with Steve Dennison, the president of the USPA, and he's like, if you really want to get after and get some publicity for the 700, you need to limit it, physically to a couple meets a year and just do the bigger meets. So this year, my circuit is going to be pretty much just the Fit Expos. I'm going to look to go 680, 670, 680 to boost my rankings and, the all-time and hit something big. It will be a new USPA record, anything over, 7 or anything over 670. So that's one goal I have. And then from there, I'm going to springboard that and try to go for 700 at the Fit Expo in Anaheim. But the smaller meets, like the Metroflex Classic in spring, the, what else? You have the Venice Beach Liftoff, which has always been one of my favorite, but it's non-sanctioned. I've won it. I beat, CT's 20-year-old record of 650 there. To me, anything under 700 pounds is a waste for me this year.
Yeah.
So 655 or 660 at that meet, I've won it. I think the last 5 years, there's nothing left to prove. You know what I mean? So that's why I'm just going to limit myself and take on the bigger meets. But I wish there was more heavyweights or more people to go against. But unfortunately, at this time in powerlifting, there's not. You know, so it is what it is. I can't cry about it. I just got to go against myself.
That's exactly it.
So you said you go a lot uncontested. Like in history, how do you usually do against other people? Like, as in the sense, does it bring out the better in you, or
does it make a difference at this point? Or you like, yeah, if someone else is there, have you historically lifted more when going against somebody else, or are you so used to lifting uncontested now that fuck it, you're in the zone and it doesn't even matter at this point?
I would say, how do I say this? I would say growing up, and this is gonna sound really Dr. Phil, growing up the skinny fat kid, I still to this day I step into gyms. Like I go to Gold's, believe it or not, look, I go to Gold's gym, and as many times I've worked out with Mike O'Hearn, and I know there's no comparison between me and Mike on the bench. And I say that with all respect because I have a ton of respect for Mike. I look at Mike and I look at other guys and I'm like, this guy's fucking big and he's fucking strong, and it psychs me out. I still to this day will go to USPA Fit Expo knowing what every single person's PR, and I'll still psych myself out. So, I'll pull my Arnold Schwarzenegger in the back. I'll walk around. I won't get in someone's face, and I'm not going to be, don't even get me, I can't even believe I was just going to say that name. I'm not going to go Kevin Washington Hulk on people, but I'll walk up to someone and say, you know what? You're only warming up with 405. I don't think that's going to cut it today. Maybe second or third, but it's not going to win it today.
Wow, really? Give him the prediction?
Yeah. And it was Guns Griffith, so I could say that because I know on Guns' best day, we're in different weight classes, obviously, but even Wilkes, he's going to hit a 5-something. And, but Guns is a great guy. He's a great guy for the sport. But I like to get my jabs in, too, so when he was warming up, I'm like, unless you start hitting 400, it's not going to cut it. Maybe second or third,
Maybe.
I did. I went, and then, there's another, a guy that we were going back and forth, and it was actually, we were trying to build it up to be a competition because he is James Strickland. He's an up-and-coming 275. It's crazy because when he wants to hit something big, he'll jump to 308. And then, so it's good. 308, 275. I'll still beat him by will. He put up like a 6-something, and it really pushed me to train harder because I was coming off of an injury. So that's the one thing I really had to push myself harder than before this year, because when you come off an injury and everybody is so internet IG savvy, and part of it's my fault. So when you go to a meet and you hit 600, but you still got 650-pound, Instagram videos floating around with your guy turning his back, it kind of bites you in the ass. And that's a question I actually got really tired of. Why'd you hit 600 in a meet, but you hit 650 in incline? And I'm like, well, that was before the injury, and two, it doesn't matter. It's a fucking gym lift.
Yeah.
But it is what it is. You got to have fun with it. But I really wish there was more people. But the day of a meet, I will not refrain from, are you sure that's what you want to open with? Because you're going to, I'll tell people, I'll ask, when are you open? That's, and
Are you
what,
sure
to be honest
that's
with you,
what you want?
no, I'm being dead serious. You asked the question, and I think out of not fear, but out of sometimes not going against enough people head to head, I try to strategically eliminate my competition early on by, if you go to a meet and your best is 580 or 590, could I openly get a legit warm up? I'd open up at 575, yeah, but I'll open up 605 just to end somebody's day. Because if your best is 580, 590, and I'm opening up at 600, it's going to be a long fucking day for you. Mentally. Mentally, I'm like, fuck, I hope you open with 680 and don't scratch. Because, hey, but if you do, I still get a second and third, so let's have fun, You know, just like Arnold said to Louis, he's like, hey, you know, you missed it by a month. You should have came in better shape. You know, but he's like, fuck it. He's like, a month would have been better. But, you know, and that's me. And I'll say, you know what? But I get stronger too. Fuck it, let's do it.
Yeah.
Can you imagine having this guy in there handling you for a meet, walking around talking to your competition? So you're opening with that today.
No shit. Pressure is on. Hey, wow. No kid. So,
Yeah.
in terms of, so we're saying Kirill is probably top dog. If you look at some of these guys' lifts and you're kind of going down that list, is there any of them that you see that are kind of sketchy in terms of the pause?
Why are you baiting me to talk about Jeremy right now?
I'm just asking. You bring it up. What are you thinking? Like, because here's the thing with the bench. You know, a lot of people put asterisks next to some of these benches because some of the pauses are straight up touch and go. Some of them aren't locked out, but yet everybody's on the same list, right?
Yeah.
Are there some of these benches that you're like, fuck, man, I don't know.
I think we would both question the same 675. But then again, you know what? My 675 was in the APA or something where it was a soft handoff. It was a soft federation, but 675. But that's why I'll hang my hat on that 705 miss. I don't know if you have access, but if you watch it, that was one of the longest fucking holds. It was a guaranteed 2.5 second hold at the top from getting the start command to about a 1.5 second pause at the bottom. And you know what? As much as I can nitpick at that, I love the fact that the USPA is strict because it's going to be the same strictness across the board. You know, you're not gonna be from a Midwest fucking gym and hold your own meet and make up your own weight class. You know, and come in and say you weigh 308 when you know you weigh 330.
Yeah,
you know, it's just not. It's like there's standards and regulations. So I wish it was more uniform. But my thing is this: is as long as I worry about me and I hit the numbers I need to hit, and as long as I hit them in the USPA, I'll always stand on top and talk shit and say, you know what, come do it in the USPA, because you'll see more people lift in other federations and come to USPA and not hit the same numbers.
Yeah.
And you can say it's a hamstring pull, it's a pec tear, whatever it is, but the proof's in the pudding. So that's why when I hit my 680, when I hit my 700 in the USPA, it's going to stand. There will be no, you know what, and that's the only thing, and I say this, you know, and I'm not talking shit, and it's not out of jealousy because I love and respect what the guy's done for the sport. I honestly, legitimately feel Spoto would have hit 722 in the USPA. I think he trained under the rules and federations, you know, that and guidelines that he had to lift, which was a soft handoff. So I think the average internet troll would talk shit about Spoto 722, not knowing the history of the sport and who he trained under. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? You get him a different trainer, you know, besides Super Sport or Efferdine, and Efferdine's a fucking beast. I'll never have anything bad or derogatory to say about Stan, but Stan's also a person who knows the rules. He's brilliant, and he knows the rules. He knows what you can and can't do. So if I have an athlete, and I'm training him for a huge meet, a world record, and I know the meet calls for a soft handoff, I'm going to train accordingly. So you can't, you know, and that's the one thing, and I separate that from someone else, like whether you're shirted or raw, someone who doesn't lock out is someone who doesn't lock out. And that's going to be the same argument you're going to hear between Kennelly and Tiny Meeker until they go head-to-head forever. You know, you're going to hear Tiny doesn't lock out, Kennelly full locks out. You're going to hear Hoolstra doesn't lock out sometimes, you're going to hear he does. So until more people do the same lifts in you know, different federations, you know, it'd be one thing. If Hoolstra hit 670, 675 in SPF and then did it USPA, no harm, no foul, no question, because he did two different federations under two different, you know, guidelines. And that's the thing. I can't knock his 675, although it looks questionable, because he did it on the guidelines and the rules of the federations he's in.
For people watching, what do you mean by soft handoff?
Okay, a soft handoff means like most federations are going to have commands. It's going to be start, press, and rack. A soft handoff means as soon as you're ready and you get the bar out of your partner's hand, you can go. USPA, which I feel is the strictest, your handoff, you can get the handoff, and until your liftoff person is out of sight and the judge has a straight line, and then the judge also says start, you can't start the movement. There has to be a clear, defined pause and hold between handoff and when you get that start command.
That's huge.
Yeah.
That is huge.
You know, it is huge. It is huge. And that's why, you know, you, like I said, I'm smart enough to not sit back and be the same people I hate and be a troll and to sit here and criticize. I can criticize the heave ho. I can criticize the non-knocking out. But if you're lifting super fast because it's a soft handoff and that's what the federation calls for, then you're lifting within the guidelines, and I can't, you know, knock someone for that. I would just, my whole thing is call someone out and say, hey, let's do it, or I'll go to your federation, you know. But but to be honest with you, because I care about the integrity of a lift, and I want to build a legacy, I want to do it under the strictest federation. I want to do it in the strictest federation. You know, I wouldn't be happy with a soft handoff 700 because I've hit that in the gym. To me, it's not sanctioned. It's not, and that's because people don't realize how much of a difference it makes. People don't realize how much of a difference there is between a gym lift and a sanctioned meet, whether it's a soft handoff or not. A sanctioned meet where you're in the singlet, you're on the platform, you know. And then but with that being said, there's other federations that I think are just way too strict just to be way too strict.
Yes.
You know, and it's really bullshit. I mean, if your head comes up a half inch, does that help you on the bench press? If you lift on your heels, is that, you know, ultimately affecting your bench press? It's not. So I think the US, you know, APL is I've lifted the US APL, and I just think it's way too strict, and I think that's why a lot of top benchers, besides the gear part of it, won't lift in the USAPL. And the gear part of it's a joke in itself. The gear part of it, I won a national championship in the USAPL. And I was running, you know, 2 cc's of fucking Trent a week.
Jesus, what?
Huh?
Holy shit.
Hey, you know, so, and at the time, they're like, hey, congratulations, you know, here's your award, your national champ. We're going to go get the guy who took 6th place and test him. But, hey, it's a drug-tested federation.
Yeah.
So, you know, there you go. But I'll also be, you know, a realist and point out that I strongly believe, you know, Ray and Blaine are legit. Mm-hmm. But I don't think that the federation's as legit as it tries to be. But at the same, it's like the chicken or the egg, because let's be real, this is where I'll talk shit. Except for Blaine, and, you know, I'm going to get slammed for this, except for Blaine and except for Ray, who the fuck else lives in the USAPL? I can't think of anybody. I can't sit here and think, holy shit, there's USAPL Nationals, I want to go watch so-and-so bench, or I want to watch so-and-so deadlift. You want to go see those two people squat or deadlift, and that's about it.
Yeah,
and I think...
there are guys like a Jesse Norris. John Hack is gone now, but John Hack, he's now USPA. Yeah. But like there are some guys. I know what you mean. Like
Ian, you know, out of Texas. He's, you know, don't get me wrong, and you know, and it's just me making good Skype conversation. You know, there are some people on that list.
Yeah.
You know, they're probably, you know, texting somewhere right now. Fuck this bench only guy.
No, but there's something about it too. Is that we've through these interviews, we've asked a lot of people. A lot of people only follow people that are close to their weight category. Very few people follow people like the big guys. Rarely follow the smaller guys.
It'd be probably hard for you to be interested
in a guy that weighs 160 pounds.
Yeah, it'd be a lot harder. Is it harder for you to get into the smaller weight classes? Do you think? Is that fair? Is that fair assessment?
No, there's some, and you know what? You're proving your point by me not knowing the names off the top of my tongue. But the Oak out of
Kevin Oak,
Northern California, huh?
Kevin Oak.
Kevin Oak is a fucking beast, pound for pound.
He's not,
you know,
he's not small,
Chris
but
Duffin is a beast, pound for pound.
Yeah.
You know, but some of the Papelbons and the people that are fucking geared up to and that's a whole other thing, that are geared up and they want to make these battles of, you know, the 160 or 190 pound guy. I'm like, dude, you look like you're in a fucking astronaut suit to squat in. And it's like, I can't get in. And that's another reason I really don't go back east to lift too much, because I've never been a fan of the geared lifters. I think it's kind of been, you know, like a kind of good old boy network type of thing. I mean, if you look, and I really think this is where the sport is changing, and you know, make no mistake about it, I'll say it because I don't give two shits, because Injury doesn't cut me a check, Titan doesn't cut me a check. For the longest time, you guys know this, go down the publications. How many people or how many publications really covered powerlifting?
Yeah.
You had Powerlifting USA, and that was about it. And who funded them? Titan and Injured. So that's all you thought in the 90s, that was to be a powerlifter, you had to be sponsored by, I'm not going to lie, I wanted Titan to fucking put me on a cover, you know, or put me in a singlet, or Injured. But unless you're one of their, you know, their poster child geared benchers, you know, in their shirt, you know, or a katana, it wasn't going to happen. But then as social media and, you know, YouTube became more prevalent, people had access to become self-righteous and to become self-discovered and self-made. So I think that's why the average person can relate to a gym lift, can also relate to someone lifting raw on the platform, because you have so many. If you have an iPhone or Android and access to Instagram, you can publicize your lifts and you can make some notoriety and do some stuff for yourself. You don't have to worry about, you know, the media outlets being controlled by Titan and Injured. So I think that's why on the East Coast, there's such a still stronghold, because they still fund a lot of the meets, and you see so many people from back east, you know, including, and I get, this is another thing, you know, we talk about methodology, West Side, because people, I got questions this a lot just the other day, and I went on a rant about it. People are like, why is your speed work so much different from West Side, you know, traditional West Side, and why don't you subscribe to her? And my whole thing is, Louis Simmons is a legend. You know, he's produced a lot of great lifters, and you guys are, I'm sure, are better historians than myself. Go down the list and name me how many 600-pound raw benchers has Westside produced.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
I honestly don't
I don't know.
So I'm not knocking Westside. I'm not knocking the techniques, but let's be real about it. It's for shirted, geared benchers or geared lifters. And that's the static holds, the pin presses, the floor presses, you know, where you heave-ho it up. Those are movements that are meant for shirted benchers. And it doesn't have carryover, and I'm not scared to say that. And that's one of the things where me and Mark used to give me a lot of product, you know, and he used to give me a lot of advice. And I started to realize a lot of the advice and stuff is for shirted people. Mark's always been a great shirted lifter. You know what I mean? And he's always been a really good gear lifter. But a lot of the advice, and if you're not a very astute, you know, bencher, you don't know your shit, you're not going to know the difference between, you know, when you hear bend the bar, that is 100%, you know, fundamental thing that's great for if you're shirted. If the bending the bar technique is not meant for a raw bench presser. But a lot of people will come out and tell you that. You just hear Mark Bell slingshot, you know, gangster raps, and you think, okay, he's the authority, so he must be telling me the right shit. And you know, Silent Mike and Mike, I mean, they know their shit, but at the same time, I don't think they fully disclose something that's meant for a shirted versus someone that's meant for a raw. And I think there was so much money, you know, into the people that controlled the publications back in the day that that's all you heard about. Mm-hmm. And so I'm not scared to voice my opinion and say, no, the West Side is not the only method. There's a lot of great techniques and a lot of stuff that's coming out that I think you're going to see the popularity of Raw continue to grow, and you're going to see, you know, the shirted stuff. That's the biggest thing. I mean, look at it. Look at the Arnold. The Arnold doesn't have any real prestigious events that are meant for Raw people. You know, the USPA is not there, and that's my whole. That was like the one little gripe I have with the USPA is it's all geared lifters because who's putting all the money into the federation that's putting on the show? Mm-hmm. You know, Injure's putting a shit ton of money. That's why you won't see a Raw division at the Olympia. And I think it's unfortunate because right now I think powerlifting is at an all-time high across the board, regardless of the federation. And I think, you know, the Raw lifters are definitely driving that. And so it's kind of unfortunate on a huge stage like the Olympia that you won't see some of the best of the best. You know, and even at the Arnold, you won't see the best of the best Raw. You'll see the best of the best geared, you know, but, it is what it is. I just wish that some federation would put together a true, you know, all-star meet, kind of like what Rum used to be. But even look at Rum. It's like, and I think that's the other side is where I think you get companies that don't want to do their best to give back to the people that have helped Raw become so big. You know, the Cage has been a success with a lot of the Raw, even though there's been a lot of wrist wraps and other stuff. You know, but look at how many people are left on Animal. One of the it used to be everybody's goal. I want to be on Animal. How many people are left? How many people are begging to get into Rum right now? Nobody. Yeah. I don't know any powerlifter that gives two shits about Rum. You know, right now I think the most prestigious meet to be in, besides that California Open coming up, is, you know, the LA Fit Expo. You know, so until someone, I think, puts up some money or someone makes it where people can lift against each other. You know, it's like you'll never see Blaine or Ray go against some of the best just because the guidelines that their federation has. You know, they don't allow them to lift outside the federation or anybody that's been banned or anybody that's on the list for, you know, lifted using gear, which is good to keep their integrity. But I think it's disheartening for the fans who want to see the best go against each other. You know. Mm-hmm.
That's pretty interesting.
Maybe that's why I don't get invited to this shit. Maybe that's why I've never been to Rum. That's why I've never been to Animal Cage. That's why I've never been to Boston Bosses. But so be it. I'll be, you know, one of the first majorly funded guys that hit 700 pounds without a huge major backer. You know, I take that back because I have a lot of pride in Tough Wraps, which Tough Wraps has come to be something I've poured my heart and soul into because of companies like Slingshot, you know, companies like Strength Systems. Because, you know, this is a funny story. I remember talking, and I won't say the name, but you guys already know what I'm talking about, talking to a world-class bencher, and I was like, how much money are you getting for wearing those, what you wore, and you set the record in? You know, I got a lot of publicity, a lot of that. So right then it told me, if the best fucking bencher...
How much was it?
I won't disclose it. It wasn't a contract. I'll put it this way, you know. I mean, for someone who put those wraps on the map and who has the all-time world... So... It's nothing against anybody who's a great business person. You know what I mean? If you're a great frugal business person, then more power to you. But from an athlete's point, if I'm talking to the number one bench presser in the world who's not under contract, who's not making, you know, a decent amount of money as a lifter, endorsing this product, then I'm like, who the fuck am I? If you're not getting paid, I'm not going to get paid. Yeah, so at that point, I was like, you know what? Thank you for the free product. No harm, no foul. I got in touch with, you know, a very great business person, Jason, who is the CEO of Tough Wraps, who was primarily doing CrossFit wraps at the time we collaborated. We put a couple months in development to say, hey, let's make it comfortable. Let's make a wrap that's going to be, you know, like personalities. We want to, you know, because everybody has an alter ego in powerlifting. Some people Superman, some people Hulk, some people Batman. So we said, let's come up with something like superhero. So that's where I originated the name Villain. And we came up with different color schemes. And I'm like, no, we're not going to be just fucking red and blue and say, fuck you, these are the only colors we're going to offer. So we came up with a lot of different colors. In year one, we went from 0 to over, you know, 200,000 in sales with just internet marketing. Jeez. And we're going above and beyond now. So I think Tough Wraps has definitely become one of the major players.
Where do people get Tough Wraps if they want it?
What was that?
Where do people get Tough Wraps if they want to buy some?
I would say Tough Raps. Just go to toughraps.com. Got a money back guarantee. Price point way lower than most of the other majors on the market. And then I'm not here trying to push raps, but it's something I believe in because it's someone that wasn't backed by a major gym. And I'll be honest with you, I hit 624, and I thought going into that meet, I paid for everything on my own. I hit 624 at the USPA and got some buzz and thought, okay, I'll have some phone calls coming in. Phone didn't ring. I'll be honest with you. And a lot of people ask me this question all the time. How do you consider yourself, or how do you establish yourself and become a pro? And I'll say it like this. Tough Raps, Liquid Hand Armor Talk, Lockjaw, Bench Blocks, Metroflex, Gym, you name it, you go down the list. There's not one contract that I have where I was called and said, Mr. Walker, would you endorse us as a bench specialist? There was a lot of people that I targeted. I made some good connections. Lockjaw is a great story. I was using Lockjaw for the longest time, and I did everything with Lockjaw. I carried them in my gym bag just because I hated going to so many commercial gyms where you had to use those metal clamps. So it came to one day, I said, you know what, I want to see if I can get some product. So I DM'd, the owner and the marketing people at Lockjaw. I sent them some samples of YouTube of me doing some crazy lifts and said, hey, look, this is 2010. I was using the locks. 2011, here I am doing a safety spot on YouTube about making sure you have the proper collars. So from then, started doing some product. And then, to this last year, we went to a contract where I'm a full-fledged, sponsored athlete. And that's something I take a lot of pride in, that I'm a sponsored athlete versus, with everybody on Instagram, you see a lot of ambassadors or a lot of people that say they're sponsored, but they're really ambassadors. And I'll tell companies, I don't want a promo code. I don't want to turn myself into an Instagram whore for your product and say, use Leroy Walker code 1234 and get 10% off, and then you'll cut me a check for 3% of something that you're writing off on a tax base anyways. No, thank you. So I take pride in it. I think if people want to become a professional, then, start setting some records, start becoming great at what you do. Because to me, it's always been more about, setting huge numbers. Yeah, I'll do crazy shit on Instagram or YouTube for likes or other stuff like that. But I know I'll never fade and become just that 15 minutes of fame, just that, smash. I'll never be that guy. Because I've done the fucking lifts. I've done the records. You guys, you're grinning because you know who I'm talking about. And I'm surprised you haven't hit me up with that question yet.
What's that?
About that whole confrontation and, the whole internet or YouTube, beef and whatnot. But anyways.
Do you want to talk about it?
You know what? And I don't think, I'll say my piece on that. That was something that...
Give the people a background. Give the people a bit of background.
All right. The background was, Quentin Tarantino. There was a huge incident at the Olympia a couple years ago where me and this other quote-unquote, I would say internet celebrity, so whatever you want to call them, got into a confrontation, about me talking shit about him on YouTube. And what came to be is, for the longest time, as we were trying to get notoriety, me and the guys I lived with, we always wanted to try to do a YouTube collaboration with CT Fletcher, because at the time, the I Command You to Grow had just came out. It was hit. It was getting millions and millions of hits. So we're like, we're California, he's Long Beach, we're Southern California, Los Angeles, he's Long Beach, let's get together and do a collaboration. Mm-hmm. So he was like, well, when you do something big like 700 pounds, maybe we'll do it. So I was kind of disheartened by that. So one, that became a chip on my shoulder. All right, motherfucker. Not only am I going to hit it, I'm going to break your fucking your Muscle Beach record. I'm going to shatter that record. So that was mission number one. And then two, I'm like, someday I'll get a collab in. So that whole stuff was said. I was on a mission. I think I did 624. I didn't get the nod to do a collaboration with CT. I was like, okay, cool. So he did the Hulk Smash video. It's got millions of hits. And I knew of Kevin because I know of the people on the circuit, what we call the circuit. I know the people that do, the gym tours, and he was with MHP. He had done some stuff, the 400 for reps on YouTube, and he did some other stuff at the exhibitions. He was known as an exhibition lifter, not a competition lifter. So with that being said, I was like, how the hell does he give this guy the nod? And then we get, and Kevin looks the part. I'll get that. So we did a parody, we just called it Hulk Smash, where I paused it, and then I did, 650 on the incline. Well, he got all butt sore, and it turned into this huge confrontation because there's supposed to be, but the backstory behind that, there's supposed to be a Generation Iron, who did the, Generation Iron movie, was looking at doing a reality series with CT where each week people were supposed to lift off against each other. There was some problem with funding and backing, and as a salvage effort, he was trying to drum up some funding going to Olympia, a.k.a. Hulk was there, I was there. It was pretty much staged because he was looking for backing. I had ran into the Hulk probably 30 minutes before that confrontation was caught on film. Hey, what was said, this was said, that was said. We were just trying to get, CT to give us a shot at getting some YouTube. It was nothing personal about calling you out, no harm, no foul. I'm in California or Texas. I don't know who you are anyways. I don't care. So it was all okay, ho-hum. So in the confrontation, I was sitting here, this is so fucking fake. And I'm looking at CT, I'm like, this is staged. Everyone's got the cameras out. So we get in each other's face. But there was some truth to some of the stuff that was said as far as before that was said, he was supposed to do an exhibition, allegedly, that he was going to do a 700-pound bench to impress some sponsors because he was trying to get off at MHP. So, with all due respect to him, when we got in the confrontation on camera, I said, look, I know you're doing 700 supposedly, but I know as a serious bencher, we can do 225 for reps. And the reason I called that out is because the MHP booth, which he was sponsored at, was right there, and they had up to 600 pounds. So let's do 225 for reps and see who wins. Mm-hmm. No, I don't do that. That's pussy weight. Okay, let's do 405 for reps. No, I don't do that. And then he gets in my face, and he's good at quoting quotes that he heard. So he saw the Spoto YouTube where he did 600 for 9. So guess what? He gets in my face, and guess how many he does 600 for? I do 600 for 9. CT had said that he'd done a 705, so guess how much Kevin the Hulk does? I do 705 raw. And I was just laughing because I know the history and I know the guy is not 600 pounds strong. So it was a big beef. It got blown out of proportion. And my whole thing was this afterwards, after that confrontation, I went on to do the 675 and I went on to miss the 705. And the rest of that year, I kept taking 630 for an opener, 650. So with all being said, I've had 1,000,001 lifts over 600 pounds on record, on internet, on social media. To where this guy just gets in my face, and then on every internet hack site you could possibly think of, this guy would never beat the Hulk. And I get people blowing up my Instagram, you'll never beat the Hulk this. And my whole thing was like, I took it so serious, I was trying to get depressed about it. Because I'm like, this guy is fucking Rocky Balboa. People think he's a real fucking lifter. He's like Rocky Balboa. People that think Hulk can really lift think Rocky Balboa is a real boxer. And so I was getting so frustrated because this guy can stand here and say he lifts 700 pounds, but yet the onus is on me to actually go out there and do the lift. Until this day, I'll tell people, like, you can look at the kid's Instagram for the past 3 years, and here's my thing. You're a power lifter. I'm a power lifter. This is what this is all about. You can't tell me if you hit 700 pounds, which only 4 people in the history of the sport have done, you're not gonna walk around and lead with that. It's not gonna be all over your Instagram. It's not gonna be all over social media. Not in this day and age. You know what I mean? It's like a porn star. If you have, a fucking 15-inch cock, you're gonna let people know you have a 15-inch. You're not gonna hide it.
Right. That would have been my Skype profile when you were looking for us.
Yeah. So with that being said, I didn't stop running my mouth about being pissed off about it, and it got back to because I told people, look, you'll have a better chance of finding fucking real Sasquatch footage somewhere before you'll ever find this guy hit 600 on a bench.
Yeah.
And sure enough, you can YouTube search right now. You'll find the guy's doing a Chippendale Magic Mike strip tease before you'll see him hit any significant weight. And to speed it up, like I said, Quentin Tarantino, I got a lot of shit, and I really took pride into making this year about a comeback, coming back from an injury. And let's be honest, the history of the sport, how many people have torn a bicep tear that have ever come back?
Not many.
Spoto hasn't come back, and Mendelsohn hasn't come back to hit a significant weight, not over 600 pounds. So I wanted to be the first. So I took a lot of pride in going to the Fit Expo and hitting 630. I could have took 650, but I had to take a jump because if you're not going for a record on a fourth, they won't let you take a fourth.
Yeah.
So I hit 630 to win it. My programming called for 650, but I had to take a 667 for a fourth lift because it had to be better than the record at 661. So with all being said, all the hard work, I really wanted to prove to myself that 650 was where I'm at, that I dispelled all the hype and all this other shit. Well, a lot of people, started to criticize why was I ditching Iron Wars, the gym thing that CT had the same weekend. Hulk's going to be there. Why are you dodging him with this, and this? And the thing that's funny about that is one of the partners that I used to work out with, M-Town Monster, a guy who I helped train who hasn't hit a 600-pound bench, hit like a 500 for 7 reps. Granted, they're touching going to gym, but he hit it for 7 or 8, and the Hulk, who was there, tapped out. He didn't do it. So there's YouTube footage that's documented that the Hulk pushed out to M-Town Monster, who a guy who still hasn't hit 600, and I'm saying that, in a friendly way, because I've worked with him, I trained him, I think I've earned the right to maybe give that type of criticism. So to all the YouTube people or trollers out there that ask me the question, when are we going head-to-head? Why would I go head-to-head with someone who can't even beat my protege?
Yeah. Well said. Oh, shit, looks like we just lost him. Well, it's been an hour and a half.
There he is.
Oh, are you back?
Yeah.
Are you?
I'm back. I'm sorry, someone's trying to call. I'm like, the guy hasn't beat the kid who I tried to train with.
What happened there?
Call and hold. Hit pause. Is that you?
No. Leroy.
Oh,
Hey.
yeah, I'm here.
Okay.
We got no video on you now, just sound. Oh, I think you're coming back now.
Oh, wait, hold on. You got video now?
No video yet.
Video now?
No, sir. You see us? Do you see me?
Yeah, I can see you guys.
But, you could still finish the story. So you're saying, so dude wouldn't go head-to-head with the M-Town Monster, but he's acting like he's on your league.
And this is all over the internet, so that's why I would ask people, I'm like, if this guy can't beat the guy who can't even open up he can't even hit my warm-up, why would I go ahead? And what's the point? I bet 600, I opened with 600, this guy hasn't hit 600. This guy just beat
the real thing,
but yet people still want to see us go head-to-head. It makes no sense.
The only reason why you would want to do it is purely for the publicity because everybody watches this cat. And everybody knows who this cat is. So even though, fuck, man, you're way over his league, you'll get some eyeballs. But I highly doubt, man, this dude would face off with you.
No, I don't think he'll ever do it. You know what? At the end of the day, and the day of social media where people measure a lot of that stuff, and it does help with sponsorship and endorsement. I mean, I went from, 0 and unknown to 30,000 followers in a couple, in a year and a half. So it's going to continue to grow. But the whole thing is when it comes down to the professional side of it, the endorsement deals and the stuff I do are going to be deals that stand the test of time. Tough Wraps is not going to go anywhere. Lockjaw Collars is a great American company. They're not going anywhere. Hand Armour Chalk is one of the fastest growing chalk, suppliers out there as far as just recognized for, their great product. So that's what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to be the Michael Jordan of bench press or powerlifting, someone who has the numbers and the accolades, and who wasn't just 15 minutes of fame, someone who actually has the numbers. So the thing with me that's different is I think the general public is internet or YouTube savvy, so they see so much of the gym, the hands on the bar, the gimmicky stuff, and they're not versed enough yet in the sport. So I think as the sport grows and, more of my stuff from, lifting and hitting the big lifts, that's something that I can't even control too. This is, quick story. I've done this little formula thing, and I figured out I can take, like, for example, I'll hit 630 at a meet, and I'll post it, and say, for example, it does good. It gets 10,000 likes. I can take the same exact footage and put the headline 630 fail, and it will get 50,000. I can label anything fail, and it will get 50,000 hits.
Yeah.
And it's fun. Like the other day, the Instagram or Facebook gym memes. It's like I ate a 605, which was one of the cleanest lifts, and by the way, it was the heaviest incline ever done on record at Gold's Gym.
Mm-hmm.
Michael Hearn spots me, turns his back. She gets like 10,000 hits, right? This gym memes picks up a spoof of me doing 225 for 65 reps. Mind you, that was done and this was the backstory people don't know, that was done at the Fit Expo after I did the 600, the 622, the 630, and missed 677. So my friend was like, hey, let's go do an Instagram for this company. They're going to help you with some other funding, and, let's just see what happens. That Instagram got like 50,000 something hits, but it goes viral on gym memes as, hey, do you remember when you only hit one rep, or 225 for one rep? Because the whole thing was a spoof, because it was like 3/4 reps. I knew it was 3/4 reps, and I wasn't thinking nothing, but it's just the disparity of what people like, what
Positive
they recognize
and
as
negative,
quality and what they don't.
Yeah.
And I sent him a DM. I was like, hey, post the 605. That's ridiculous. Opposed to the 225. At least do that for me. Try to help me, save some face, because I don't be looked at as a Castleberry.
Yeah. Listen, we got to bounce after this. So real quick, if you want to shout out any sponsors, you did a pretty good job. And our last question, how you'd like to be remembered in the sport. You almost kind of touched up on that already as the Michael Jordan laid down. But I'll let you roll with this real quick.
All right. As far as the sponsorships, Tough Wraps, great wrist wraps, Hand Armor Chalk, they're great chalk, Lock Chalk collars. HMF is a great supplement company. I just signed with recently. But as far as legacy, I think I want to be known, I really care to be known as one of the best amongst my peers. And I think Brandon Lilly said it best. With social media is going to come and go. There a couple years ago you had MyFace, or you had, MySpace. Yeah. Face Hack, whatever it is. All that shit's going to come and go, but the records are going to stand the test of time. And at the end of the day, I want to be the guy that's whispered about, when trainers start to train clients and they say, who do you want your best to be like? I want to be that guy. And I want to go out on top. And that's the one thing that it's a double-edged sword. You see a lot of people's careers were either short-lived or they're cut short because of injury. I would have loved to see Mendelsohn go on to duel it out with Spoto. I would love to see Spoto be able to duel it out with, with Krill. So with that being said, first off, I'd like to get to 700. And then two, before it's all said and done, I would like to go head-to-head with the number one ranked person. Now, whether that's number one in the U.S. and me and Spoto get to share the platform, or if it's number one that I get a shot to go against Krill, that's something I'd like to see, because I don't think in our lifetime you've seen anybody go head-to-head. I can't remember any time in the U.S. that you've ever seen two 700-pound benchers on the or for that matter, the history of the sport. I don't think there's ever been a time in the sport, because everybody had their crown at a different time. Mendelsohn was done before Spoto came up. Spoto got hurt before, Krill went on his rampage, and it's just, you've never seen two 700 pounds. So that's what I want. I want to be the first person, internationally, American, whatever, to be on the platform with another recognized 700-pound bencher. I think that footage, that film, that epic battle will stand the test of time. Win or lose, I would be happy to end my career like that.
Well said. It's a good note to leave it off on. I'll tell you what, real quick, USPA, they got the fucking money. If anybody could pay Kirill enough money to leave Russia or even go over there, however it gets worked out. I mean, they got $250,000 getting given away for awards. I hope that would be. You're right. That would be the Instagram that goes viral, and that would be the most talked about bench off of all time. No doubt. That'd be the Super Bowl of bench pressing for sure.
Yeah,
but
I think it can. I think it can. I think it can definitely happen. And I think there's enough people connected to the sport that have ties to the way the sport used to be done. With the Ed Cones, with some of the other greats that are still ambassadors for the sport. I think enough people, can diplomatically reach out and get it done. And I'd like to see it happen.
Here's hoping, buddy. Here's hoping. Anybody watching who's got any pull, let's make it happen. Hey, thanks for coming on, man. You're very well spoken. We got a shitload of sound bites out of you. I'll tell you that right now. You got some good stories, man. We'd love to have you back.
All right, thank you guys. I appreciate you guys having me on.
No problem, man. Have a good one. We'll talk later.
All right, you too. Thank you guys.
Bye-bye.
All right, bye.
He's got some fucking good stories, man. I didn't know about some of them.
Well, we'll wrap this up pretty quick because that was a long one. You
Yeah.
know what I mean? But the thing is, the one thing I really want to touch on, and I agree with him 100%, is that, they don't promote the head-to-head competition in any Fed like they should. If you were to watch a strongman competition and only one person,
Yeah.
how long would you watch?
Yeah.
Because you don't get to compare, right?
Yeah.
And then, like he's saying, you got benching is, the single benchers, whatever. When you got the top 10 benchers in the world, put them in a fucking room and let them go. You know
Especially
what I mean?
if they're pushing 700 pounds.
That's what I mean. But put them in one area where it's the same judges. Whether like world judges, not U.S., not Russia. Like make it a fair platform and let them go. And
Same rules.
Same rules.
Same
everybody.
lift-offs,
But
same
everybody
pauses.
gets those rules ahead of time. They got a
Yeah.
year to train or 6 months or whatever, and they go for that one competition because. I do agree with them on that they do not promote the head-to-head.
Not for that. IPF. He's an IPF guy.
IPF has got.
I'm all about the IPF.
I know,
obviously.
but IPF has gotten better.
Much better.
Yeah.
They're showdowns. They're actually, they show the athletes who are involved, and there's some good showdowns. But anyways, listen, this is close to a 2-hour one, guys.
Yeah.
Next time we got Eva, the Deadlift Diva. I think that's our next
Yeah,
podcast.
it is.
So peace out.
Thanks.
See what I got.